Hello, thank you. Can I just start by saying thank you to Helen, to Anna and to Madeline for really taking a bit of a risk and inviting a classicist and a narratologist to join the RISCS family. I hope it's been a gamble that you think has paid off, and I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking through some of the ways that I think it's been sort of mutually reinforcing and kind of dynamic. But I have to say, it's been wonderful to have the opportunity to do this work, as I say, as a bit of an interloper. I'm an interloper because I'm a professor of classics based at the University of Bristol. I'm a narratologist with particular research interests in stories, story forms, frames, schemata, mythic archetypes, the things that program our socio-technical engagement with new and emerging technologies, including, of course, everything in the kind of cyber and digital domain. And today I'm going to give you a flavour of the fellowship around anticipation and futures literacy, and a cognate project that we've been running in parallel with this on socks. I always felt a bit silly saying I'm going to give you a flavour of socks. It's not as cheesy as it sounds, I promise. Because both the anticipation of futures literacy theme and the SOCS fellowship are deeply rooted in the premise that cybersecurity is fundamentally a futures focused field. We've heard that absolutely loud and proud in Lizzie's presentation, through Maria's, and in Madeline and Anna's introduction. So this isn't news to anyone. It's just acknowledging that this requires distinctive skills and competencies, and recognizing that futures orientation, and so that we can develop the capacities in the field that we need. So the aim of our fellowship, now in the second year, was particularly to understand that relationship, to get some kind of deep understanding into that relationship between futures thinking and cybersecurity, to hone and develop some expertise in that area, to find out examples of best practice, some great work that we uncovered in small businesses, through to industry, through to policy, and of course within the NCSE and the RISCS community itself. Again, the advisory board of RISCS was fantastically helpful in this regard. And we really wanted to try and kind of build that capacity, build that community, as I said, bringing together people who were often quite fragmented and isolated, who were interested in working and building their skills in strategic futures work in this space. And of course, one of the discoveries that we found in the first year, and that we've been extrapolating this year, is the power of storytelling and the understanding of narrative in this space to help us achieve a full range of these goals. I think it's helpful just to take a moment to think about what anticipation is. It's an academic discipline, of course, first and foremost, but it deals with how we as humans reason about the future. And we've been working with UNESCO. We were engaged in a high-level summit last year, which we talked about in last year's presentation, the showcase. We've been working with them and using their definitions of anticipation and thinking about how we get better at using our skills to take action in the present, using kind of future-focused work to take action in the present. Again, embedded in the heart of every dimension of work in cyber. Futures literacy, I think, defines that kind of core skill sets that we've been helping people hone and develop across the ecosystem, and really helping them to, I think, empower the imagination is one of the ways that I think about this, and which is why credit to all the people we've been working with who've been so happy to have us try and spark their imagination in this process through some creative elicitation techniques. But futures literacy is really that power that enhances our ability to prepare, to recover and invent as changes occur. And one example of using anticipation and futures literacy in this space to empower the imagination in the creation of future scenarios was through using futures news stories. And we did some work in spring 2021 with academic colleagues in other institutions, Flint, and working with Peter Davies and his colleagues at CIRES to produce a storybook of futures news stories, motivated by specific case studies, rooted in kind of hard science, and using these to focus the mind on the importance of futures thinking, but also futures preparedness, Really useful, we've heard, for boards thinking about the managing the risks and the obligations which people are responsible for here. So you can see links to all of these on the RISCS webpage. Now, these stories, as I've said, really help us spot potential weaknesses in existing policies, plans, explore new ways to mitigate risks, to kind of preempt and prepare for potential harms, and crucially, not just to build resilience, but I'm going to use a term that Anna G came up with as part of this work, and I think it should be sort of copyrighted to Anna, and that word is prosilience. Not just resilience, but prosilience, putting ourselves in a position that we're ready to kind of move forward at each juncture, not just to spring back, but actually to use opportunities, threats and harms to move forward. It's a great word. I'd like to see more of it in conversational discourse. As you can see from this slide here, we've had a busy year. It's only when you pause at these moments in the annual cycle to kind of clock them up, you realise why you're tired. Our ambition for this second year was really to socialise our theme, build up and cement. We wanted to make sure that there was a sustainable legacy for this programme. We're futures thinkers after all. We didn't want it just to come to a stop at the end of the fellowship. So really cementing this community, building resilience and prosilience into that ecosystem. So we're working with teams and that we've been bringing along from the very beginning, building on our successful workshops at the UNESCO Summit last year. We really wanted to kind of to see how we could push out into the international space as well. We've given presentations to DCMS. We took part in Anne Johnson's Fireside Afternoon Cyber Tea, which is great fun. We produced podcasts for Cyber UK, had various invitations to take part in international symposia. Flo, the magnificent Flo, helped us run a policy workshop for various members of the ecosystem, and we've just been accepted to present at an international conference on anticipation in Arizona next year. So really pushing this strand out into the broader international community. So emerging from our findings with various kind of members of the ecosystem, we discovered that kind of story and a deeper understanding of that was going to be really important to kind of both landing that kind of futures literacy message. So we carried out some work examining the narrative dynamics in this space. As you can see from the slide, thinking about what was already going on, finding examples of good practice, but also looking at pain points and problem areas, making practical recommendations on the back of that for practical strategies that people can employ for improving cybersecurity communications, both within teams and externally. There's a copy of this report that you can find. I'm sure Flo will find a link to put in the chat for us as well. Thank you, Flo. So using, as I say, stories to enhance that futures literacy and futures thinking and anticipatory practice that so many people have identified as the core of their work. One of the examples that emerged from the SOX project has been the, for me, rather unexpected discovery that the function of an organisation like NCSC, for example, has a classic mythic archetype function, that of the donor or the helper. A classic mentoring, caring, very supportive character. Think Gandalf or Mary Poppins, if whichever kind of helper character most kind of floats your boat. These characters, of course, help heroes defeat villains, but they do so much more besides. They provide tools and services to help people, in a sense, lead their own security and enhance their own quest activities. So we've had a great deal of fun trying to kind of work out what the different characters and archetypes are in the ecosystem of cybersecurity. Do you have any suggestions from your own experience, your own organisation or industry? Do get in touch. We'd love to hear more from you. You can find out more about how these things fit together, some of the kind of key messages here that we've already discussed. One of the things that I thought was significant was the optimism that comes with thinking about cybersecurity as an archetypal quest narrative, the emphasis on teamwork, which we've heard so much about today already. Also, a lovely sort of optimistic subplot, which has been great to engage with. Also thinking about future possibilities and indeed profitabilities here. So you can find the full report from the SOCS project online, you can contact me, have a play on our risks theme web pages. You'll find our storybook and all the risk reports. And as I say, drop me a line and I'll send you an owl, presumably, and to follow up on this. But thanks very much for your patience. Cheers.